Welcome to AP Biology. Today I want to go over life cycles and how they differ in animals and plants and fungi. So let's look at that. So you're probably familiar with the way it works in animals. You have a diploid organism, 2N, a full set of chromosomes from mom and a full set of chromosomes from dad. For people, we have 46 chromosomes generally. And then we do meiosis, and meiosis halves the chromosome number. So for people, it would be 46 chromosomes to 23 chromosomes. But for any animal, meiosis brings your chromosome number from the diploid 2N to the haploid N. And so you have eggs that are haploid and sperm that are haploid. Right, another name might be monoploid, maybe a little bit better of a name. But anyway, monoploid is one full set, or haploid is one full set of chromosomes. And then at fertilization, haploid and haploid together make a diploid zygote. And so for humans, it's 46 chromosomes. For other animals, it can be a different number. And then we do mitosis. So we go from a diploid zygote to a diploid grown-up with a whole bunch of cells. And so that just repeats over the generations. And so animals do that. Here's another example of an animal doing that. So for mice, I think their chromosome number is 40. Could be wrong, but I think that's what it is. So 2N would be 40. They have 40 chromosomes. They would do meiosis in their testes or ovaries and make haploid gametes. So that would be N equals 20 for the egg, N equals 20 for the sperm. And then the gametes would get together in fertilization to make a zygote with 2N equals 40 again. That zygote is going to do mitosis to make the multicelled organism. So the gamete is only a single cell, and it never does mitosis. It just does fertilization. And then you have the diploid zygote that goes ahead and does mitosis to grow. All right, and then the only time meiosis is occurring, this would be true for everybody, every kind of organism who does meiosis, that would be bringing you from diploid to haploid, meaning like you're going to half your chromosome number. So I think I said that part a little wrong, but meiosis will half your chromosome number. That part is true. So if you're diploid, you'll end up being haploid. Okay, so that is not the way it works in everybody. In plants and in fungi, the haploid thing can go ahead and do mitosis. Isn't that wacky? So let's take a closer look at that. So this is the way it looks in plants. So what's the same and what's different between them and us? So what's the same? Well, they've got gametes that are haploid, right? And then they're going to do fertilization to make the zygote. That's all the same. The zygote does mitosis. This part is the diploid part. And you get this diploid multicelled organism, right? That's the same thing in us. Meiosis is also the same to make these haploid things. The thing that's different, one of the things that's different, we're not going to call them gametes here. We're going to call them spores because those spores will go ahead and do mitosis and be multicelled. It's going to be a haploid multicelled organism. Isn't that bizarre? And so this happens in all plants, but in moss, for example, the haploid, the thing that you walk around in the forest and see, or maybe out in your yard, sort of in a shady area, the moss is actually mainly haploid. It's so wacky, right? And then to make the gametes, they're going to do mitosis, which is also different, right? They're already haploid, so they're not going to do meiosis. They're just going to do mitosis to make the gametes. So all the stuff I just did in blue is the stuff that's different. Spores can have different definitions. Here we're going to call a spore a haploid cell that doesn't do fertilization right away. And so here's moss, mainly haploid. The only diploid part in them is if you see the little red stalk that comes up. If you look really closely at moss, you can see that. That's their diploid stage. All right, with other plants, like vascular plants, like flowering plants or conifers, same thing in that they have a multicelled diploid and a multicelled haploid stage, but they spend more time in the diploid stage. So here's a diploid multicelled organism. It's growing. It does mitosis. So here's the multicelled diploid organism. There's the anther. It will actually do meiosis, or the ovary will do meiosis and produce the haploid spore. And so here's their haploid spore. And then they're going to do mitosis. So instead of fertilization right away, they do mitosis. A pollen grain is going to be multicelled, and the pollen tube is multicelled. So that's their haploid multicelled stage. And then fertilization takes place between the sperm and the egg, which is going to be just single-celled by the time they get there, and then they fertilize. You get a zygote, and then the zygote is diploid, right? And so it's going to do mitosis and make this eventually this grown-up plant. All right. In fungi and protists, most protists, they're going to have sort of the exact opposite of what we have. So here's what's the same. I'll do the same stuff in red. They've got gametes that are haploid, and then they have fertilization. They make a diploid zygote. The thing that's different is it doesn't do any mitosis at all. So right away, it's going to do meiosis without doing any mitosis. And then it'll make their haploid spores. And in some unicellular organisms, they actually don't do mitosis to become multicelled. But in most fungi, this is the way it works. And so they do mitosis to become this multicelled but haploid organism. Isn't that wacky? And then they'll do mitosis to make their gametes. And then this is the part that's the same with us. The gametes do fertilization to make a zygote. So 3 very different life cycle stages.